Hello everybody, it's the Venom Xenomorph, and welcome back to another episode talking about Springtrap in Dead by Daylight. Now, it's been a while since I've recorded one of these in this certain fashion, so I really apologize if the methods are a little bit different, but no worries. Let's just jump right into the thick of it. So, last video we discussed very heavily about how Blumhouse Productions and Atomic Monster are going to be creating a Dead by Daylight movie, which is a really, really big deal. I mean, we're talking about two heavy horror genre producers creating basically the amalgam of the horror community as a film adaptation after it's already been such a successful video game adaptation. Not only this, but Blumhouse Studios is actually working on the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and this combination has led me to believe that Springtrap could potentially be the next licensed chapter in Dead by Daylight. Now, there's a lot to break down in regards to this sort of situation, and I really do want to get through everything in this video. So, starting with the beginning of it, obviously, the main thing that is a big highlight is, Atomic Monster at Blumhouse covering the movie and making sure that the movie is going to be the best adaptation of this game. Now, it's very important to mention that Atomic Monster and Blumhouse Productions are now currently, I believe, the same company. I believe Blumhouse Productions is its own, it's a merger of the two now. It's not just Blumhouse and Atomic Monster as two separate companies, meaning that Blumhouse now has all of the access to the properties that Atomic Monster did, and Atomic Monster has access to all of the properties that Blumhouse did. This means that Atomic Monster has the rights to Five Nights at Freddy's, as well as Megan and The Black Phone and a bunch of other properties, the Halloween trilogy, the latest one, of course, 2018 through Halloween Ends. And then, of course, we have Blumhouse having access to all the Atomic Monster properties, The Conjuring, Saw, all these other great horror elements and great horror properties. This is a really huge deal in terms of Behavior Interactive being able to create some sort of agreement between these two film studios in order to be able to create a Dead by Daylight film. But not only that, this means that if Dead by Daylight is willing to talk to them about offering their video game property as a film adaptation, then they must be more than open to be able to share their film properties as DLC for Behavior Interactive. I'm sure there is some sort of licensing agreement that they've come to in terms of being able to use one property in exchange for another, and I'm going to break down immediately why I believe Springtrap and Five Nights at Freddy's is the core runner-up in terms of the license opportunity that they plan on taking. Starting with something that I recently heard on a Schmuggles video. If you don't know, me and Schmuggles are actually relatively good friends. We talk a lot about Dead by Daylight theories quite often, and I've even appeared on his channel once. And through this discussion, I did watch his recent video talking about the Dead by Daylight film and talking about the development period in which licensed chapters are coming from, which is a 6 to 8 month period, which honestly is a perfect time frame. The reason this is a perfect time frame is because around 4 to 5 months ago, the Atomic Monster and the Atomic Monster and Blumhouse Productions company merger was announced. This was 4 months ago, which means that the conversations in terms of a licensing agreement, if following the current math between Behavior Interactive and Blumhouse Productions, was set in stone at the around 6 month, the minimum time. Atomic Monster and Blumhouse Productions were two separate companies at the time. This means that the conversations between, Atomic Monster about access to The Nun, or they already had access to Saw, but any conversations regarding the Conjuring franchise or any other properties that Atomic Monster would have been a little bit of a harder conversation, considering that at the time of this discussion for this film, they would have been two separate studios. Now, Blumhouse is a very different conversation. Five Nights at Freddy's has popped up multiple times on the player satisfaction survey. This, I'm assuming, is due to the demand that us as a community have created in terms of kind of a power vacuum in terms of demand for a new chapter that could be really well developed and really well understood if the devs are willing to be able to provide the opportunity, which, according to different sources, some of the devs do feel opportune towards a Five Nights at Freddy's chapter, while other devs, of course, as we've seen from past experiences, have relatively been stagnant on this idea. Now, the good news is that this interaction between Blumhouse and Behavior Interactive might have left a great mark. Five Nights at Freddy's has been a developed film for Blumhouse for years now. I'm not talking just 6 to 8 months as much as a licensing agreement can go. I'm talking multiple years. 2020 was back when we were first hearing news about different adaptations of Five Nights at Freddy's and how the scripts were coming along, getting tossed, figuring out the story, and there were a lot of different key points that we were covering very heavily in regards to the Five Nights at Freddy's film adaptation, to the point where we were actually able to make sure that there is a lot of breathing room in regards to this company being able to decide whether or not this property belongs in Dead by Daylight or belongs with them as a studio. So because of this, them following through with the film, obviously they're very in the thick of production, in the middle of filming, as well as having their main lead cast already decided upon. Behavior Interactive would have had long, deep conversations with Blumhouse Studios in terms of being able to have access not only to their initial library of content, the different properties that I've previously listed in the video so far, but Five Nights at Freddy's is definitely a core candidate, especially since they were already considering adding it through the player satisfaction survey, of course, nothing confirmed, already considering adding the chapter as a potential option before Blumhouse had even officially gotten into gear moving on for the Five Nights at Freddy's film, which is a really, really, really big deal. This means that Behavior Interactive has been paying attention to what has been happening in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, and not only that, but once the gears have turned and once everything started getting the ball rolling in terms of that franchise, they've been more than capable of being able to come in and have access to the license and be able to start developing what they need. This means that they had plenty of time to be able to save this announcement, this particular announcement of the Dead by Daylight film, for their anniversary stream. This is a point that I want to highlight very heavily. They could have had access to this information for a very long time, and they could have held on to this information for the anniversary live stream that they like to do in terms of announcing different things and different projects that Behavior Interactive is working on at the current moment. And it's kind of a big deal that the film adaptation of their property and their game was not the hot topic of the discussion. In fact, it was posted kind of out of the blue, which means that these conversations with studios and making sure that they have access to certain licenses A, B, and C are actually going way better than any of us could have possibly expected. This means that they have access to something relatively huge. The biggest announcement they could possibly announce of last stream, other than the, of course, Resident Evil and chapter being the announced anniversary chapter, but we're also getting, of course, Funkos and everything like that, which are currently canceled. So they save a lot of these special collaboration announcements for live stream announcements like the anniversary, but they didn't. They wasted this opportunity on announcing it kind of out of the blue in the middle of the beginning of March, even though the anniversary stream isn't until May. This means that not only would they have access to the Five Nights at Freddy's property through Blumhouse for several years in the process, but they also would have a perfect development time of 8 months since the actual merger by the time of the anniversary stream in around May or June. So because of these things, I'm very confident that Springtrap is going to be coming to the game very soon. That, or just Five Nights at Freddy's in general, could be making its way into the fog really, really soon. But only time will tell. Only time will tell whether or not it's access to a different property that Blumhouse owns that is more popularly demanded. Of course, they have access now to Conjuring, The Exorcist, a bunch of great properties. They could finally add skins to Michael Myers that people have been demanding for a very long time that they weren't previously able to have access to before. This communication with Blumhouse is crucial in terms of expanding the lore and expanding the story of Dead by Daylight, as well as having access to a whole plethora of different properties that they could add to the game and improve their player base. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Tell me whether or not I'm wrong in certain aspects or whether or not I actually am right in certain ways. Let me know whether or not Springtrap would be a perfect fit in Dead by Daylight or whether or not it would be kind of a silly addition. But let me know whether you guys think I'm right and whether or not we hope to see Springtrap in the future. But as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!